So these impersonal merit-based systems are going to be completely done away with. I mean, I would be shocked.
So SATs, ACTs.
And measurement of them is already done away with in most cases, but I'm also going to get rid of now even advanced placement to the extent that that's not already a joke in any given school, because it is testing disparity, racial testing disparity particularly, that is irksome to our elites that want control over everything. Right? So I'm going to get rid of that. And when I get rid of that, then the education system will just become very transparently sort of like essentially a daycare. Like this is the holding tank where we have people until they're released onto the job market. Right? Rather than challenging them or changing them, we're going to hold them here until we can put them somewhere else, right? They're going to go to get a job, or they're going to move into some higher form of education or something like that. But our job is basically to pass them through. This has always been a dysfunction of our educational system. This is John Taylor Gatto's complaint about New York public education 40 going on 50 years ago now, right? It's just that my job, he says, as a public school teacher, is to pass people through the system.
This is No Child Left Behind. Before No Child Left Behind.
This is long before, but No Child Left Behind is informed by the same idea that somehow, contrary to nature, everybody's going to be educated to the same standard.
Yeah.
And if they're not educated to the same standard, if I still have testing disparities, I need to throw money at the problem.
Yeah. I remember, so I studied psychology and business in undergrad, and
Yeah.
I regretted my psychology study. It was terrible. And I remember I was taking, I forget which class it was in psychology, but we had this discussion about how, I forget what the graduation rate, like, you know, freshmen that come in, it's called 75% graduate,
Yeah,
or
sure.
80%
Right,
graduate,
right.
25% fall out.
Right.
And the whole discussion was, how do we raise that to closer to 100%? And I wasn't usually the lone dissenter, but at this part I was like, this is good, right? Like, if 100% graduate, then what have I accomplished? I've just a fish in a stream down the river. Like the fact, like someone has to fail, or else this is way too easy.
Yeah.
I was the lone dissenter in the class. They just kind of moved on with the discussion. But yeah, and I wasn't thinking in these ideological terms or anything like that. I could just once again just kind of sense like, that doesn't make any sense. Like education has to be competitive enough that some people don't make it, or else everyone's going to be a doctor, and I don't want just anyone operating on me. Like, someone has to fall out and be like, this is too tough.
Yeah, well, and you recently had there is one of those sort of like flushing kind of classes. It's usually been in a pre-med curriculum, organic chemistry. One of those classes where you had a very old school guy at Columbia University in New York, a white male, unfortunately for him. And he was still running this orgo class, and people are washing out of it, and they're like, well, it's too hard. You know, like that seems to them like a legitimate complaint. That erasure of standards is an erasure of the idea that according to nature, life is unequal. I'm not as fast as you. You're not your hand-eye coordination is not as good as mine. I'm dumber than you. Whatever it is, that nature is unequal. Right? That when we're talking about equality in some kind of, Declaration of Independence kind of way, we're talking about equality before God. We're not talking about equality in this life or on this earth. And that when we do try to make that happen, we're always revolting against nature because we're trying to force something. So it's not just, is this worthwhile if everybody can do it? If 100% of people graduate, is that a degree that I want? Because nobody was challenged, obviously. Because 100% of people did it just fine, right? Do I want that degree? It's also that, yes, if 100% of people who enter go from pre-med all the way to being brain surgeons, do I ever want to take the risk of getting brain surgery? No, I do not, because I have no idea whether that person can actually do it.
Yeah. One travesty, and I'll be careful with the statistics I give because I haven't looked this up, but I have a good friend who went through med school, and he was telling me this, and he was giving me all the numbers and stuff. So he wasn't just kind of flippantly talking about this. He's like, this is wild. And he was talking about the MCAT scores. I think that's what it is. To get into med school.
Yep, that's right.
And he said, listen, there's a spectrum, and it's a huge spectrum at what your score needs to be for you to get into med school, depending on your gender and your race. And I'll just say, I won't go through all of them, but the highest is Asian males. You have to have the highest score. So if you're an Asian male, you have to have a higher score than a white male.
Yes.
And a much higher score as you go down the line.
Yeah.
And I remember that blew my mind. And at the time I was like, I have to change some of my doctors, right? Because I'm going, my doctor could have had low scores all the way through. I need to go find an Asian male because they had to always be the best. And their whole point was they're trying to reverse, they categorize it as, well, we're trying to reverse, institutional racism and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, well, you just created a system where I'm going to go search for an Asian male because you're creating a system where they have to be the best.
So what's happening is that the way that is connected to secularization as a process is that the less that I'm familiar with anything being a given, like why are men this percentage of plumbers? Why are men this percentage of brain surgeons? Why are women this percentage of this profession that is basically like caring for another human being? Why are only women mothers? Is that it gives me an incessant gap between what I observe and what I think is actually achievable. So it lets people say things, and this is kind of a sad version of the question that you posed earlier about the woman who wants to be a mother without a dad. But there's currently a push that I've seen in various advertisements connected to sports to end childhood cancer. Now, on one level, it's like, who thinks that's a bad idea? Mm-hmm. On another level, who believes that this is something we're actually going to achieve? But the answer to the second question is lots of people. Because lots of people believe every problem is due to somebody else conspiring to keep it in existence. If it's a problem, it's because somebody hasn't tried hard enough or spent enough or been disabused of his privilege enough or whatever the problem is. And so it's achievable. It gives us a sense of godlike capacity. Mm-hmm. And not only will that, in this case, with a campaign to end cancer, disappoint us, but it will also cause us currently to engage in all kinds of malinvestment and hucksterism. It concerns fundraising, so there are going to be grifters, all profiting off the fact that you can't tell the difference because you have no acquaintance with God or nature between what should be and what is. Because you're not... You have never been taught that what is just what you deal with in life.